right, well then let's get this show on the road. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Ink, the talk show that takes you behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the publishing industry. We're back again with our wonderful co-host and the amazing talking bird, Bella.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Gorgeous bird.
He is a pretty girl. So tonight we have with us LM Preston. Hey, LM, how's it going?
Great. Aloha.
LM is coming to us from, looks like her car in Hawaii right now. Is that right?
Yes.
Awesome. much better weather than I'm having here, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. 82 degrees.
Oh, phenomenal. Phenomenal. And then we have Armand Rosamilia. How's it going, Armand?
Good. What's going on?
Not too much. Not too much. Wait, I've got to get my swivel on.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I got called out last time I was on your show that I swiveled too much by a reader, Thomas O'Brien. He said I had to look away because all you do is swivel when you talk. I didn't know it was bring your bird to the podcast day though. I have trained attack pigeons. I would have put behind me. Yeah.
Man, well, when we come up to an intermission, maybe we can go get them. I have heard though that swiveling in the chair is a sign of great intelligence. So.
Well, then I am super intelligent.
Yeah, me too. And then we have our host, the phenomenal Katie Solitis. How's it going, Katie?
Hey, it's going. Another week is gone. Where did this week go?
Gosh, I don't know.
I don't get it, man. I blinked and all of a sudden we're back on again. Not that I'm complaining. This is my favorite time of the week, getting to talk to everybody. But this was a super fast week.
Lots of stuff going with the kids.
Oh, as always. Never a dull moment, right?
That's right.
Yep. All right. Well, we better get to talking with our guests here. So let's throw LM under the bus first. You've got a new release. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
The new release I have is the last book of a 3-book series called Purgatory Rain, and the book's name is Fierce Tides. It's a paranormal, urban fantasy, young adult novel that's very action-packed, a little bit of magic, a little bit of demons, a little bit of angels, and of course sci-fi sprinkled in there. It's been getting really good reviews. We did something, it's very challenging, third book of a series other than the first book. So we've learned a lot with promoting this one, and it's been doing pretty well. Can't complain.
Now, in terms of promotion, what do you do to go about promoting your books? Do you hire a publicist, a PR specialist, or do you just buy ad space? What do you like to do?
In the beginning, I hired a publicist, but now I hire people to do specific things. What's really worked for me and my budget has been doing crowdfunding campaigns and building up my newsletter. So my newsletter really feeds to new readers that like my work. I also do newsletter switches, which is a very free way to capitalize on your readers and other readers of authors, and it's free. You share their promotion in your newsletter, and they share your promotion in theirs. We started using Head Talker, but Head Talker started charging as a crowdfunding campaign. Now we're using Thunderclap and another one called Daily Cause. That's really helped to get the word out about our books, and it doesn't cost any money. It's just about and retweeting. And that actually does pretty good when we tie that in with a giveaway, where we capture all of that traffic that's retweeting about our book. So those become continued customers, so to speak. So it's been working out pretty well, and it costs very little money. But we do still use blog touring as a way to promote, as well as buying ad space on, blogs and newsletters that also promote to customers. Or
I like that you point out a lot of the free options, because marketing can be super expensive, and I think all of us can agree on that you can just blow a ton of money in attempting to get your book in front of other people. And the crowdsourcing is a really interesting option. So you mentioned Head Talker is charging now for that service. I know they used to be free. What was the other one you said? Thunderclap and Daily Cause?
Head Talker was great, but they got bought out. So now they start their I forget who they're part of, but they're part of another place. But Thunderclap is really good. That was the first one I used. And I've never heard of Daily Cause. I love coming on this podcast because I always have my notes. So I immediately wrote that one down because I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, exactly. I know I've got my little notebook on the side too. When we last talked to you, I think you had told us about Buffer.
I thought I got that from you guys.
Maybe I'm trying to think who told us about that. Because Buffer was one that I remember learning from using the show or from meeting people on the show. And then there was Co-Promote, which was one that I had recently found too.
Yeah, I think I learned Buffer from you guys, and that has been awesome. I have 7 different Twitter accounts plus 2 Facebook accounts. So I have 9 accounts that I use, and I schedule them, and I have like a whole little schedule of times, and it's really been awesome for, you post all day, and then all of a sudden you go dead all night and early morning. But now with Buffer, I'm scheduling them out, and I'm getting some great. It's awesome. I'm getting some great sales overnight. So I wake up to sales, which really helps. And then also I do it for the podcast network. So as new podcasts drop, I can spread them out all over the place. And I'm finding with that, I'm getting a lot of listeners overseas and in different places because hey, it's midnight here when I drop it, but it's already 5 a.m. in Germany. And people over there are picking up downloading the podcast and taking it for their morning commute or whatever. So that's been probably like the biggest so far for me has been the Buffer.
And that falls into the low cost services, not necessarily free, or do they have the free option still?
There's the free option. I think you get 10, but for $10 you get 100, and that's on each account. So I'm putting, I can set up to 900 posts at a time if I want, which is awesome.
Definitely cost effective.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Armand, what is your new release that you just came out with?
I just came out with Necromancy, which started out as a horror erotica, a serialized for a company, because about 3 years ago, a publisher came to me and said, hey, I'm doing this line of short stories focused on the erotica, but it's in like horror. Do you have anything? And then, of course, I'm a writer, so I said, "Oh, sure I do." And then I said, "Well, let me write something real quick." Yeah. And I did about 5 stories in first person, a snarky character called Sherry Rose Thorne, and the basic premise is her father is kind of like I picture like a Ming the Merciless. He's this necromancer, and he has all these daughters to help him basically destroy the world, but she's turned and she said, no, I don't want to do this. And she's like this cool, heavy metal chick from Texas. And she basically, throughout the story, she fights vamps and zombies and things. So that was kind of the fun. And when the publisher went under, I rewrote them and I took basically all of the erotica out and I made it more of a supernatural thriller, still with the snarky character and everything. And I had it for the last year on my Patron. Every month, on the 15th of the month, you would get a new chapter of that. So then everybody who was on my Patreon got to read it basically for, $1 or whatever. And then it came out, basically put them all together. And, so that's been the new one.
That's cool. Awesome. Now, so we've stripped out the erotica. So now we're more horror and paranormal, you said, right?
Yeah, I focus more on the paranormal part of it. I mean, there's still sex, but it's not, gratuitous. It's not the whole story. Because one of the stories, when I wrote it, I actually wrote it and went to submit it to the publisher and went, oh, I didn't put the porn in there. And I had to add like a sex part somewhere in the story, which made no sense.
Okay. So the sex was kind of an afterthought anyway, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that you did erotica, so I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, no kidding.
I've actually, years ago, I actually did erotica under a pen name. Yeah, for a while I did maybe 24 short stories. It was never something I wanted to do. It was kind of like that chase the money thing. And then it got creepy because then creepy guys would send me pictures of their junk and stuff. And I was just like, yeah, I'm never going back into this account again,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh.
When I got together with my wife and she found that, she knew I was a full-time writer and everything else, we went through and basically she said, I had mentioned, oh yeah, I used to do the erotic, and she's like, yeah, please, if you don't have to, don't write that anymore, And I said, I don't anymore, which is nice. So
Now, what about you, Katie? Do you ever get weird solicitations from random guys who have read your books?
No, never actually.
Okay.
I'm like that weird, strange white unicorn that's never even gotten a dick pic offer.
Wow. I have a whole Gmail account full of them. If you want one, they're really.
Oh.
There was I went to a Vegas indie authors luncheon, and somebody was on their phone and were like, "Oh my God!" And they had gotten one of the dick pics sent to their private messages, and we had gotten onto the subject of you've really made it when people are sending you these, and I went, well, how come I never got one? Damn it.
Something to look forward to.
So that, if you're wondering, that is the gauge of whether or not you've made it, is if you're getting sent dick pics.
I have not made it yet either. I'm still waiting for my day to come. So Armand, are you still self-publishing?
Well, I'm a hybrid, so I do. Like coming up in November will be Dying Days 9, which is my zombie series, and this will be the last book. This is like the last one. In fact, I'm writing it now, and it's really weird. It's like sad that this is the last time I'll be writing these characters. I mean, this has been around for almost 10 years. I've been writing these characters now. So that'll be coming out, and that's self-published. But then I also do, I work with other small presses on different books. So I have a couple of books right now that are out with publishers, and then I do, I'm writing my third book with author Jay Wilburn, and then the two of us will submit that to a publisher. So we won't self-publish that. But I try to do a mix, and I try to work with different publishers so not to have all my eggs in one basket.
Do you have a good gauge on what seems to sell better? Indie versus the.
It's a different. It's funny. I've gotten to the point where I can start writing something or come up with an idea and immediately say, "Okay, I know a publisher who might take this," as opposed to, "Okay, I'm writing this for me. I'm writing this because I know my fans will want it." And now also with the Patron, it's nice because I can put a lot of one of my levels for Patreon is first chapter. So as I'll write a first chapter, and you get first draft of a new book that I'm working on. That might not be something that I'm working on all the time, but it's something like, oh, you know what, I'm going to put this up there and get some feedback from it.
And I really would love to explore how an author can use that.
So Patron, they pronounce it Patron because I've watched all their seminars and all their different things. I did a lot of research before I went in. I didn't just want to throw something up there, and it's not just for authors. It's for musicians, and it's for cosplayers, and it's for everybody. And basically, people are subscribing, for as little as $1 a month, and they get all that content or a certain amount of content for it. So my thing is, for $1, you basically get everything. I do every Monday. I do a weekly, the week that was, and I'll tell you all my writing for the last week. So I'll say on Monday I did 1,252 words on this book or that book. And a lot of times too, it's stuff that you have no idea. The normal fan has no idea I'm even working on. Like I'm ghostwriting a book right now, but most people haven't even heard that I don't mention it on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere, but I'll mention it on the Patron that I'm ghostwriting something for someone. And so I do all those little kind of exclusives like that. And then I'll do short stories. Like I'll come up with a short story and I'll just put it on Patron and, just for those fans or, different things. On the first of every month is a Dying Days young adult novella I've been writing, and it's on like 22 chapters now. On the 15th of the month is a crime. Basically, it's like a crime thriller that I'm doing called Plan C, and I'm 4 chapters into that. So I add a lot of content that's exclusive for that because I don't want to just be. Again, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to just be Amazon. I do really well with Amazon, don't get me wrong, and I do really well with Kindle Unlimited with page reads, but this way it gives the hardcore fan who wants to read more of my stuff, it lets them just check out. And I have over probably about 150 posts in there, different stories and chapters and breakdowns and videos and different things. So there's a lot you can do with it, which is fun.
Well, that's really, I'm going to have to explore that a little bit. Now, is there a way to look through all the archived posts? You know, do you have access to all that information as a reader, if I was looking at your Patron?
Yeah, it's basically you basically put tags on stuff. So that it'll give you a list of the tags, and then you just basically, it's set up kind of like a blog. So
Okay.
you can basically just scroll through and read through, or you can hit specific, keywords to go through on it.
Okay. And you said that you have different levels in your Patron. Is that if you subscribe at a certain level, you get certain things? Is that how it works, kind of?
Yeah, and you can set them up yourself. So for me, it's for $1 a month. Basically, you can read all your basic stuff, which is still a lot. The $5 level is you get to read everything, plus you get an extra 1 or 2 short stories. Okay. And then at the $10 level, you get to read 1 or 2 chapters of a novel that I'm working on, plus the short stories, plus everything below that.
Okay.
So there's kind of the incentive to go to the $10 level.
Yeah. Now, how do you attract people to this Patron? Is it, because I've actually never been on the site myself, is it kind of like a social network, or is it you're marketing your individual page?
You're marketing your individual page, but they give you a lot of help with it as far as share buttons and different things. And there's a ton of videos you can watch, and they do like once a month or so. They'll do basically like kind of like this, a hangout, and they do a couple hundred, people that have a page. You can get ideas, and it's really cool. And there's a ton of authors on there, so I'm able to go on their pages and kind of see what they're doing. Here's your levels, and here's the amounts, and for different things and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
I think it's fantastic, and it's a way for you to reach out to your audience and offer them something as well as get something in return.
Right. Yeah, because I'll do contests and stuff. So I might pick an address, give me somebody's address, and I'll send you like a swag pack, or a brand new book. I'll do some kind of contest. When I was looking for when Necromancy was done in Patron, I needed another book to do on the 15th of every month. So I did a poll up there, and I listed a bunch of books, and it was great because I got so much feedback from people voting and saying, no, I would rather rewrote this book, or you did this or that. So it was really, it wasn't what I expected too. And feedback from the readers is so important. And for me, for Patron, that's where I'm getting it.
Absolutely. Well, and you're creating that community. It's not just, author versus fans. It's an actual community who can tell you this is what we're looking for, and you can satisfy them by writing it.
Right. And it's fun because you can do it's basically set up like a blog, like I said. So I'll post a new chapter, and somebody will make a comment. Somebody will go, oh my God, I can't wait for you to kill this person, or, oh, I hate this character so much, and they'll go back and forth, and they're giving me actual feedback chapter by chapter of whether or not they really like the story, or, it's all right. And then when I do my my weeklies, and I give them my words, and I might have a really bad week. We go through a hurricane. Well, we didn't have power for 3 days. So my thing that week was, well, I didn't write, but I read 5 books in those 3 days. And my goals, and people will say, hey, I know October 1st is your yearly. Did you hit your 400 words for the year? And people remember that because I've been doing it for over a year now. And so it's neat. It's that real personal, that because Facebook is so big, Patreon almost feels like that one-on-one. There might only be a dozen people in there that are subscribing and and doing it, but I get that real good connection with each and every one of them.
Now, do you find that translates well to when you have a book release? You've been building it up, you've been sharing some of the pages for the subscribers that are at that level. Once that book is out, does that translate over to the excitement for that new release?
I was surprised. The biggest surprise for me was when Necromancy came out, because I figured, okay, these people have read it. Every month they've read it. So now the book is out, and probably more than 75% of the people in there said, awesome, I went and I bought it. And I'm like, but you've read it, but they're like, we want it all in one. We want the ebook Amazon version, and then a couple of them said, when's the print book coming out, because we also want the print version. So that was pretty cool for me, because I figure, okay, those people have already read it, so and also you look at it and you go, they are also your advanced readers on it. They're beta reading it, because I'm literally writing first draft and putting it up there. So everything they've read is just first draft. So when it's done, I pull it all together and I send it to my editor. But I've already gotten beta. I've already gotten a dozen beta readers on that book for me, which is great.
That's excellent. I really like the way that sounds like it works, and you've definitely got me interested to go check it out. It's something I've heard of from other authors, but never really had the chance to explore or heard how they're using it.
Right. There's a couple of authors on there that they do a much better job than I do. They do so they'll share, for at a certain level, they'll share their notes or their outline of the book, or they'll share character sketches, or they'll write little scenes, maybe the scenes that they've cut from the book. Like they basically just share everything about this book as they're writing, and fans really, really go crazy for that stuff. I mean, they really, really relate to the behind the scenes, and at certain levels, a lot of authors will do videos, they'll talk about the book, or they'll read parts of the book or whatever, and it's a really neat thing, because you get all that behind the scenes stuff, which readers love.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just like with media. People like to see the behind the scenes on DVDs. They like to know how things were created, what went into them, all the interviews and, outtakes and whatnot. It translates the same to books too.
Yeah. And it's the authors who do really well are the ones that put a lot in there, because there's a couple that this is their first book, but they've shared so much, pre and post the book coming out and everything. And that's what, people are looking for. There's authors who will do like one post a month and that's it. And they don't have a ton of people coming out. And honestly, I don't promote it a lot. I don't build it a lot, because it's more that personal, you tell me you're a fan, we start talking, and then I'll casually mention it, or another person who subscribes will mention it to somebody. And that's kind of the way I'm building, because obviously it's great to have 500 people all at the $10 level. For me, that's not the goal. It's a really great creative outlet that I don't have any pressure. I don't have any deadlines, except for, on the first, I got to have this chapter. Well, it's a chapter, so it's 1,500 words I have to write in a month. I mean, it's nothing. And then it's good, because I go, hey, I have to write a short story this month for the Patron page. So let me pull something together. I did it last December. I did every month. I posted something, and I went, way deep stuff from like 20 years ago, unfinished stuff that wasn't even on, that was basically printed, and I had to rewrite it without rewriting the story, which is really hard, because I'm like, oh my God, I was horrible, back then. But I just basically just rewrote it. And it was fun to do that as a writer, because I was like, wow, why would I use that word? Or who was I trying to impress with these big words, And it was a lot of fun to put that up there, and for the readers to go, oh, wow, I can't believe, even like little snippets, or stuff that's so old that I'm like, I don't even remember writing this. So that's a lot of fun. And it's stuff you can't really put that stuff up on Facebook. And you really can't sell it to a publisher or self-publish it unless you're doing some kind of memoir or some kind of big book for it.
That's pretty cool. And you're touching on something that we've talked about so many times with almost every guest that we've brought on the show, and that's being real and being genuine with your audience. You're sharing old things that wouldn't normally see the light of day, but your fans appreciate it so much because you're sharing a piece of your history as a writer. Right.
Yeah, I have old fantasy stories from literally like 2004, 2005 that are, brutal to me. I cringe when I read this. And a couple people were like, oh my God, give me more of this. And I'm like, I haven't even been in that world in like a dozen years, that's like so way out of, I don't even think I could write that stuff ever again. But it's something that's pretty cool, that's out there, that a lot of people don't have access to.
And of course they appreciate it too. And they continue to be a fan because they know that you're going to have something else to share. and they're kind of in that secret circle, so to speak.
Right. Exactly. And that's for me, that's the fun of it, is because I know for me as a reader, I want to go on there and I want to read the stuff that nobody else can read. You know, I absolutely love author notes. I love the behind the scenes stuff. I love the creation of not only the book, but the you know, the DVD extras, like you said. That's the fun stuff for me.
No, I totally agree. My favorite authors, I would absolutely love to be able to be on you know, the inner circle, getting all the inside scoop on what's been going on and what they wrote that week and what might be coming up. And yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm gonna have to look into Patron a little more here.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, and it's a nice slow build with real readers. Like if you're going, I mean, now there's authors in there that are making $2,000 and $3,000 a month off. But that was never my goal. My goal was never, hey, I'm going to do this instead. My goal was, if I make a couple bucks, hey, that's awesome. But creatively, I wanted that outlet for, you know, that was more important. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. Give me $2,000, $3,000. I'm going to be happy.
It sounds like you're looking more for the interaction with people, and I like that.
That often leads to more things, though. It's back to that cycle of being real with your audience and them appreciating that and that drawing more interest to you.
Yeah. And I enjoy that. You know, you sit home all day writing. I sit in this office, you know, 12 and 14, 15 hours a day writing. And while, yeah, there's social media, Facebook is open and Twitter is open and all that, most of the time it's just spent in my head creating worlds and stuff. So it's nice to be able to talk to readers and stuff. I mean, I love talking to other authors. I love talking shop. I mean, my wife, she gets a kick out of whenever me and another author get together, because we can talk shop and we can talk all buffer and all these different things. But it's also cool to be able to talk to a reader and them tell me, hey, I really love, you know, this scene, or when are you writing more of this character, and different things like that.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny, as I actually I really enjoy talking to readers as well, and not just about my books, but about other of our, you know, in common favorite author books. I know it's almost more fun than talking about the writing to me sometimes, because you can get lost in somebody else's world and kind of share a passion for someone else's creativity, which is a lot of fun. Because I don't know, us writers, we're definitely not all the same, but we all have very similar struggles. And sometimes, like, you know, sometimes I don't want to think about the struggle. Sometimes I want to think about this awesome place that so-and-so created, and you know, I don't know. You know, it's fun.
Nice to be able to fangirl in somebody else's world.
Yes, yes. So Pierce Brown, if you're out there, please invite me to your inner circle. I love you.
It was so funny when he was supposed to go to Phoenix Comic-Con with us, and at the last minute, I had gotten the schedule because I was attending and doing panels. I had no clue that they would sit me in the same signing room as Pierce. So as soon as we found that out, we were trying to figure out how to get him on video and go see Jason at the same time. And last minute we did it. We ran up. I'm sure he thinks we were insane. It was me and Alexia.
He did have a bit of a shocked look on his face. He was like, oh, shit.
We ran over because he was like one table away from me. And she had the book and I had the camera. We're like, quick, he's your biggest fan.
Oh, that is awesome.
To his credit,
when he realized it was a 37-year-old man, he was really disappointed. Oh yeah, that was super fun, and I think that maybe is part of the draw to go into the conventions, is, you know, getting to meet different authors and actors and things like that. Of course, I've never been, and I need to get out and go to some conventions. I'm just waiting.
My career, I owe a lot of it to that. I think it really took off going to World Horror Convention, and I go to Scares That Care in Virginia every year. I'm going to go to Nikon for the first time this year.
To what?
And Nikon.
What is that?
It's basically a horror writers, more or less a weekend. It's not. There's no cosplay. There's none of that. It's basically, I think it's limited to like 200 authors, basically. Like, so Joe Hill's been there, and Brian Keene is the Grandmaster this year, and it's basically the who's who of horror authors. Goes to this every year. and this will be my first one, so I'm really excited for that. But it's just it's that networking. It's that one-on-one you can't get. You know, I can sit here and talk to you every day, but me and you sitting down in a room together and having a beer or whatever, or sitting down and having lunch together and just talking, for me, that's the real connection. It's still that face-to-face, one-on-one, and especially with publishers. I've sold more books because I'm there and we're just chit-chatting, and I look at their covers and I read some of their blurbs and I talk to them and I say, this is somebody I want to work with. And then, you know, being myself, you know, here's who I am and here's how serious I am and everything. And a lot of times those publishers say, well, what do you have? Pitch me something. And I've sold about 3 or 4 books just standing in front of their table over the years, just, you know, throwing it, hey, this is what I'm working on. What, do you have a publisher for it yet? No, why? Do you want it? Well, send me the first 3 chapters, or send me it when it's done and we'll look at it. And I've sold those books that way.
You are the master of the pitch. I remember
yes, I do enjoy doing that.
So give us your one-line pitch for this for Necromancy.
So the basic thing is I did it in like the pitch, I did it in first person, and basically say my name is Sherry Rose Thorne, and my father is a necromancer along with all my sisters, and my goal in life is to kill all of them. And that's pretty much my pitch to the publisher to begin with. And I actually used that in my Amazon as part of the Amazon description, because they were like, okay, tell me more. Okay, that's what I want. That's what you want to hear, you know?
Yeah, I like it. I like it. So tell us, what does a necromancer do?
Her father brings demons and devils, and they call them vamps and fiends. And I have very specific things that they do for them, and he sends them out to kill her, to stop her, slow her down. And she has a thing she calls the itch, where she knows when one of them, she calls them the mark, which she knows one of them is in the area. And so her goal is to go to different parts. So she might be in Newark, New Jersey, having a pork roll sandwich in a diner, and somebody walks by and she's like, oh my God, that's a demon. And so she has to go and face off and kill that demon, and she can't control that. She can't stop it. So he knows this, and he keeps sending these creatures out to her to slow her down. And then her sisters are trying to kill her as well.
I like it.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a little different from what I've, you know, written in the past. And I'm getting away from just doing horror stuff. So I'm doing a lot of crime thrillers and different things like that. More thriller than horror now for me.
Okay, I was gonna say that doesn't sound anything like the Dying Days type work that you do. Yeah.
I didn't want to write another. I didn't want to keep writing zombie books. Yeah. You know, I the natural 9 books and all the offshoot books. It's over. It's done. It's sad because I won't play in that world anymore. But there's so many other worlds, you know, that I'm still playing in.
How are people responding to you not writing in that world anymore? Are you getting a lot of people saying, hey, I really want to read more of this, or are people pretty satisfied with where it went?
You know, everyone who's read up to book 8, which came out in June, are really happy, and they're really hungry for this last part. They know in November this is it. This is the last part. But okay. I'm sure once it comes out, I'm sure I'll get a lot of you know, kickback of just one more story, or just please do something else, you know. And I don't want to. I want to continue with the other stuff. You know, Dirty Deeds, which we talked about last time I was on, the crime thriller, which was picked up by Kindle Press. I got my audiobook rights back from them. So okay. I put out the audiobook about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's doing phenomenal. Awesome. And I'm actually writing book 5 now. So twice a year I'll have a new Dirty Deeds, you know, book out, which I'm doing real well with. And maybe 3 years ago I wouldn't even attempted a crime thriller. I would have said, no, let me just stick to the zombie stuff and the horror stuff.
It's kind of nice when something allows you to test the waters and you see the success in it. Now, are you still going through, was it Kindle Scout we talked about with the Dirty Deeds series?
Yeah, they still have they have the rights to that for another 4 years or so. The first book, but I And I had the print rights to it, and I got my audio rights back. So really, they just have the ebook rights to it, and they gave me an advance, which I paid back. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to stay with them. One of the things was because they wanted to put out a book every year, and I said, "No, this is a quick read. This is like a fun 50,000 word book. I want like 2 a year." And the first one ends on a cliffhanger, so I wanted that second one to come out sooner than later because people were pissed that it just ends, and they were like, "Where's the next one?" You know. And well, you got to wait. You know, I didn't want you to wait a year. You got to wait 6 months. So now that I'm writing the 5th book now. The series has really picked up and taken off, and it's it's that typical what every author I ever talk to says. Once you hit that 4th and 5th and 6th book, that's when it really blows up for you. And I'm seeing that now. I'm seeing a lot of sales on the first handful of books now because of it.
Yeah, series allow you to play in a world for so long that people really appreciate it because they don't have to, one-hit wonder the story. They can really get invested in those characters.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of. I mean, I'm like TV. I'm a binge reader, so I want a series. I want 5 or 6 books. I don't want to read that one book with a character I love and then have to wait a year for that next one. So a lot of times I wait till they're into that book 4 or 5. And then I'll just go back in and I'll just go through and I'll read it all in, a week. There's a great author, Dawn Lee McKenna, who wrote a thriller series basically set in Florida. And I think she's on book 6 or 7. And I literally read one book a night for like a week because I loved her characters and I loved her books. And I think if I had picked up the first one and read it and then went, oh, now I got to wait a year, by then maybe I wouldn't have gone back to that, to that series.
Yeah, I can see that. I totally can see that. Someone just lent me a book called, and I don't remember the author. I apologize off the top of my head, but the book is called Duskfall. I haven't began it yet, but she told me, handing it to me, she's like, it's part of a quadrilogy, and I was like, okay, where are the rest of them? She's like, oh well, they haven't been written yet. I'm like, I don't know if I want to get into this because if I fall in love with this, then I'm going to be stuck for 4 years or whatever it takes to get the rest of these darn books. Yeah. But yeah, series are great. When
we grew up, and I'm a lot older than you guys, but you would buy a book and a new book would come out, especially like say a fantasy book, and it's 100,000, 150,000 words. So you would read that book, but then your mindset was, now I got to wait a year for the next one to come out. So you read 2 or 3 books every month, but it was different books. And then there became a cycle after 2 or 3 years of, oh, good, the new Robert Jordan book is out. I can read this now. The new whatever. Oh, good, the new Brian Lumley Necroscope book is out. I can read. And that was how you read. Now you don't do that. I mean, now you just read a series. Because if somebody had given me a book 1, I would have said, okay, put it on the shelf behind me. And then when book 4 or 5 came out, then I'll sit down and I'll binge read the whole series.
Netflix has ruined us.
Oh God, me and my wife, that's how we watch TV now. Like we'll find a series like Justified, which neither of us had ever watched. And I said, well, this is based on an Elmore Leonard short story. Let's watch this. And we blew through it in like a week and a half, and it's like 6 seasons of it. And we loved it. But I would have hated to watch that an hour every week. That would have driven me nuts.
Yep, I'm the same way. I binge watch all my TV. I binge read series, but I don't read nearly as fast as you read. Man, a book a night might take me a month to get through a book. As little reading time and as slow as I read.
I mostly read. What's funny is I mostly read nonfiction. So I'll read. I read a lot of biographies, a lot of musicians, and whatever. I'll read biographies, and I'll read like 3 or 4 chapters a night. But when I get a fiction book and I get hooked on it, I don't want to go to sleep. I want to finish that book.
It's kind of been an ongoing problem in our house, and it's the reason why my wife and I go through phases where we don't read at all, and then we'll be completely consumed with what we're reading because we kind of ignore everything else. It's like, nope, I'm in this book. You're going to have to see me again on Friday, because I'm gone for now. But yeah, it's fun. It can be hazardous. Yes, it can. What are you doing? What are we doing now? Okay. Okay, creepo. So now, speaking of reading and readers, Armand, you kind of use your Patron as also a beta reader source. Is that correct?
I didn't start it that way. It just, all of a sudden, about a month or two into it, I realized, hey, wait a minute, I'm getting feedback on first drafts chapter by chapter here. And this is pretty cool. And not necessarily that they were commenting on the page, but they would send me comments in emails and say, hey, I love this, but, you know, what about this? Or it would say, oh, I was reading this at 4 chapters ago. I was wondering where you were going with this. That's awesome that you did this, or I still don't understand this. You know, basically it's a normal beta reader would give me some of that feedback, which is great.
Okay. Now, as an author who's been around for a little while and written quite a bit, how do you usually handle feedback that you get from beta readers? Because, you know, we've kind of got this mindset as authors that we know what we want our stories to be and we try to make them that way. However, if you've got beta readers telling you, hey, this isn't working, or hey, what the heck is going on here? Do you take and you go back through and reevaluate what you've written, or how do you handle beta reader feedback?
Well, here's the good part for me, Jason. Every word I write is perfect and probably some of the greatest writing ever. So there's really
I figured as much.
There's no typos. There's nothing. I mean, the book is just perfect on now. You know, in the beginning, as a beginning writer, when I started getting beta readers, I changed every single thing. You know, every little thing, and then you realize, wait a minute, I'm changing something that then the next beta reader loved or wanted it in another way. So, like, I get all my beta reader stuff, and I get all the feedback, and I get everything back, and I have it all printed out, and I'll throw all of them. I don't look at them at all. I'll throw them all on my desk, chapter one, and it might be 5 or 6 of them. With Dirty Deeds, which is fun, is my wife, who's probably the most blunt beta reader I'll ever have. My mother-in-law loves the books and read it, and another woman reads it. And they read, you know, crime thrillers. They read these books. So all 3 of them, I'll print out a copy of the book, and then they mark it up. So I'll take all 3, and I won't do anything until I have all the feedback, and then I'll go chapter to chapter, and I'll just basically go all 3 chapter, and I'll see what each of them has questions or comments or whatever. And a lot of times it helps. A lot of times it's not just the typos or things like that, but a lot of times it helps me. They don't understand maybe a character or a motivation or something like that. And I know if I skip over that, I guarantee when I give it to my editor, her first thing is going to be, and she's very blunt, this makes no sense. I mean, that's pretty much, this is, you know, what are you trying to do here? Kind of thing. So I have to play with it. I have to change it anyway. And then there's sometimes where I love where the beta readers, because as they're reading, they're marking it. They're like, well, this doesn't make sense. And then like 5 chapters later, you got me. Now I see what happened, you know, what happened in The Guy in the Trunk, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of fun too, because then as an author, it also lets you go, okay, I got you, because I smile at that and I go, all right, they're questioning this, but wait until they see the twist on here, then they're going to understand what happened.
Seems fair enough. Katie, what do you think? Do you ever, when you send your stories out to have beta readers look at them, do you ever look at their advice or take it seriously, or do you pretty much just kind of say, I'm going to do whatever I want and just do it my own way?
I do listen to my readers. I always do. I may give them a few snarky replies, Jason. But just like what Armand said, there's some elements in certain stories where if a reader's questioning it at one point and they get to that, you know, future chapter, then they see why. When a reader pops up and says, oh, this didn't make sense, or why did somebody do this right here? And I'm just going, oh, I know you're going to get to it later. And it just confirms for me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. For instance, in my latest one that I know you're reading right now, Jason, I've told you, pay attention to each character and try and figure out who the villain is. Because if I've done my job through the entire story, you're going to change people, and you're going to think one person is and another person is, and then realize one person isn't. And by the end, it should be a huge, you know, WTF moment.
When I send stuff out to beta readers, and I have a couple of really intense beta readers, a couple of medical professionals and a couple of police officers, people who really know their shit and aren't afraid to tell me when I've done things wrong. So it's always a really, it's a strange process reading their comments and trying to incorporate their feedback, but knowing at the same time that I'm creating a piece of fiction, and while I want there to be that realism to it, I don't necessarily want it to be a lecture either. You know, I don't want them to feel like they're, okay, you've just taken a class on how an autopsy is done. You know, I still want it to be a fun experience too. I don't know. So, but it's, beta readers are interesting, and I think that they're a very important part of the job being a writer. And I need some more beta readers. So if any of you out there want to be a beta reader, paranormal horror, I need some more good beta readers, because I like getting new opinions.
You know, you can always send me stuff. I'll tear it up for you.
Yeah, I don't like it when you tear up stuff, Katie. You're always like, shouldn't there be a hot guy that changes into a werewolf that runs into this scene?
Yes, more naked werewolves. Where are my werewolves? No, but you know, a good point though. The technical readers, not just the beta readers, but your technical readers, they provide really good feedback, but you do have to toe the line between, you know, giving them a class on autopsies or, you know, what have you, versus making it an experience for the reader too.
Yeah. Weapons is a big one for me, because I don't own guns. I never have, but I have in the past. I've had a couple of military guys, but they will give you a lot of feedback, and then you don't want to use so much. You don't want to do something that as a reader turns me off. Is a lot of zombie books have military in it. Well, these are military guys, so they're going all the way down to, you know, the name of every item that they're wearing and ammo and everything else. And when I was doing Hollywood stuff, when I was doing especially zombie stuff, they were very specific with me, which is funny. They said, say weapon, or say rifle, or say handgun, but don't give specifics and don't say anything else. But we mostly want to see just the word weapon, and that's it. And then let the reader fill in the blank on that, because we don't want, and these are all military, former military guys, Navy SEALs and everything, that are starring in these movies. But they said, we don't want all that. We just want weapon, because I think it takes away from the story. Like you said, it's a difference between that TV autopsy where the two guys are standing over a body and they're talking, and the doctor's kind of moving his hands around, and you know he's doing something, rather than let's show it. Let's show the cadaver and the body pulled apart, and let's do 8 pages of how to properly take a heart out of a cadaver and stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I think that, gosh, somebody had posted it. There's all sorts of great little writing memes that get posted, but I think it was a Stephen King quote, good writing begins in the imagination of the author and ends in the imagination of the reader. Mm-hmm. Meaning we want to explain things and we want to create this story, but we don't want to give them every detail. We want you to be able to come up with some stuff on your own and experience it in your own way. And I think that's a good thing to remember.
I said not too long ago, because I do 2 podcasts, and one of them is the Mondo Method podcast with Chuck Buda, and he's a newer author, and so I've been doing this for a long time. So we play off of each other. We play off of that, and he teaches me a lot of the newer stuff that's coming up. But one of the things is, I said, so the characters go into a bar, as an example. You don't have to spend 3 pages describing the bar. I mean, it's in a reader's mind. If you go, they walked into the sleazy bar and they saw the hooker in the corner he wanted to talk to. That's all you really need. That's okay. This is, he walked up to the bar. The bartender wearing a tuxedo, gave him a martini. I mean, that's all you really need. If it has nothing to do with what's going on. Now, if you have a gun battle or you have something specific that you need to know where people are, say in the bar, that's one thing. But just to do 5 or 6 pages of description, that's where you lose the reader.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, and I remembered what I wanted to say too. You were just talking about weapons, and I don't own guns either. I'm a big gun person, but I do have different guns in my books, and I know a couple of guys who are big into firearms, and so I would always ask them, hey, tell me, what this is called, what this is doing, exactly how this mechanism works. And it's funny, in going back and writing it, the first time I tried to use a lot of technical terms when it came to firearms, I ended up messing so many things up because I would get myself confused because there's so much information, and gun guys really know their shit. If you mess up something with a gun guy, they're gonna lay into you about it. So I would write out this scene, and then I would have another scene later on, and like all of a sudden this isn't an AR-15, it was an AR-17 or something. Just as an example, just a silly little mistake, and it's like, you know what? I am way too specific about all of this stuff, and it's confusing me. It's going to confuse the hell out of everybody. But weapons are a very good example of how you can be way too specific.
Yeah. Well, in Dying Days, I mean, it started with a flash fiction piece, but it starts with the main character, Darlene. Her father turns into a zombie, and she has to shoot him in the face with a Desert Eagle, which is a gun that
big old 50 cal handgun.
Yeah, which is a gun that he made it because at one point they had the factory in Maine, and after doing research, I found that. I said, okay, we'll start it in Maine, and this is actually a gun he gave her on her birthday, and now she has to kill him with it. And the only reason I use that gun is because an old girlfriend, her dad had just bought one, and it was literally at 40 years old. It was the first gun I ever had in my hand. He let me hold it, and he talked about the gun, but he had mentioned offhand, oh yeah, this was actually made in Maine for a couple of years before it went back to Israel or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I started writing Dying Days, and I was like, perfect, I have a gun, and I did some research on it. And I had a review, a one-star review right away, and the guy said, I couldn't get past the first page when they use a Desert Eagle. This writer is an idiot. Who would use that as a weapon? And that was the review. And I was like, okay, I probably don't want you as a reader anyway. But I mean, it's like that. It's like that, passionate. I'm a gun guy, and you're using a weapon I don't think you should be using in a book. And I just thought it was funny. I'm like, if you maybe had read another page or two, you would have seen why I picked that gun. There was a reason, not for the firepower of it.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine. Who was he was some branch of the military, and I can't remember now. He had posted something about 50 caliber handguns. It's when you need to shoot the burglar in the next house behind the refrigerator. And anyhow, that's beside the point. Katie, I'm getting off track.
I'm such a gun novice that I'm just whatever gun fires things. That's pretty much it. That's why I use swords and knives and machetes in my books. I know more about those than I do about guns.
Well, tell me, there was in one of your books, I believe it was yours, the handsome, hunky gladiator guy that Mira has to, hey, let go of that earring, you little butthead. Stop it.
Are you talking about Mitchell with the flailed mace?
What is it called?
It's a flailed mace.
Flailed mace, and that's the thing where he spun around and it would whip out and come back and stuff.
Yeah, it's the long stick that has the chain, and then it has the spiked ball at the end.
Okay. It seems like there was some other weapon that you described that like it was a ball with a chain, and then it would go out and wrap around people and whip it back, something like that.
Yeah, that's the same thing, but it's a smaller one. It's not a long chain.
Oh, okay. I pictured it as a really long chain.
No, not a long chain at all. You've maybe.
So how did you get your weapons knowledge? How did you learn about that stuff?
I just like weapons. To be honest, it's kind of funny. I spend so much time on YouTube doing a lot of research and watching fight videos, watching training videos with various types of weapons. I've taken self-defense classes in the past, but a lot of what you find out here are lovingly called McDojos. And so it's been a while since I've actually taken any legitimate self-defense class, but I'm still looking for a good one where you can learn with weapons and whatnot. And actually at a combat con I went to recently, I learned that there are some guilds out here that will teach HEMA sword training. So I'm going to be looking into that.
What is that?
I forget what the acronym stands for, but it has to do with swords and martial arts.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so actually next week is Ren Fair, and I'm going to be trying to get a hold of some of the guilds that go out to Ren Fair to find out how I can join up and learn.
Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds fun. You're on the pen.
Unfortunately, our other guest, it looks like she was not able to make it back on, so I'll be contacting her separately to see if we can't get her back at some point for another recording session. Thank you, Armand, again for visiting with us and telling us about your new release. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Hopefully I can come back on again. Always enjoyed talking to you guys, and I always like taking some notes and getting some new ideas too.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you again for joining us on another episode of Spilling Ink, the talk show that takes you behind the scenes in the publishing world. Tonight we had with us Armand Rosamilia. Thank you so much, Armand. It was great to have you on. And thank you to our wonderful host, Katie.
And we will be back next week with more authors to introduce you to and more people in the publishing industry.
That wasn't very enthusiastic. Let's try that again. And our wonderful host, Katie.
Woohoo!
Oh, wait. Hold up your shirt there for us. That's perfect for that.
All right, hold on. Can you see it?
Only sarcasm. Nice.
That's a good shirt.
That's my workout shirt.
Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.